Hey tubers, welcome back for another adventure. I'm still working, chipping away on this Polaris. Some all-terrain vehicles are like that. You try to go slow. I'm trying to kind of get into this thing without putting a fortune into it until I make sure it's going to start, run, move, and everything else. I have not been able to find an exact replacement carburetor. This is an eBay clone. It cost about 60 bucks. And as you look at the listings, it says for the, what is it, Trail Boss, or in this case, the Explorer 250 4-cycle. So I saw that, and they all seem to say that. Then I spent another few minutes looking around and realized that unless the Explorer 250 or the Trail Boss 250 is made overseas with a 4-cycle engine, the 4-cycle, particularly Explorer 250, does not exist. Now, this exact machine, this Explorer 250, has only been made for a few years. It looks like 2000 through 02, right? And I think really the only difference between this and the Trail Boss is that you got the additional high-low, so a little different transmission. Anyway, I got the carburetor here, and let's see if it's going to actually go on, if it's not too tall or too deep, so to speak, if this isn't too long, or what the story is. Once again, I'm trying to work on this from a cheapo point of view. The last thing I want to do is have it eat $500 or something and then discover that I wasted a lot of money and what I have is a lawn ornament. So I'm going to take that off. We'll take a look at it and see where we could go from here. Here we have the carburetor side by side, and we instantly see there are a few problems, right? First of all, you got something going on there that you know, obviously the new carburetor doesn't have. It's got that guy. This guy here is not here either. So the carburetors are different in that way. But let's say I'm blindly going to go forward and just smash it on. Here's the next problem. You see the 36.6 and you see the 39.7. So the flange isn't going to work. But I could always buy a new flange. I have to do that anyway. And lastly, it's just too tall to go in. It won't settle in enough. The bowl is bigger. So this carburetor was a waste of money. It was never going to be an exact fit, but it looks like I can't fake fit it either. So let's see if we can pull some parts out of it and use those parts in this guy. So going further, you guys could see we have, I call these slide floats, which hit this lever to turn the gas on and off when the bowl is full. This guy has a cantilever, has a pivot float. So I can't even borrow parts and swap them around back and forth. When I went to take the float valve apart here, I had trouble getting the pin out. So I just checked it, you know, you close it and see if you could blow through it, and you couldn't, and you lift it and you see if you couldn't blow through it, and you could. So I kind of assumed it was working. Obviously it wasn't, because this thing was a flooding carburetor. The rest of it seemed okay. So, and these guys, if you just turn this upside down, they seem to slide back and forth plenty easy enough. But I've had it where water has gotten in here and it cracks those little float things, and then they don't do the slides. So I'm going to try putting some gasoline in here, and we'll see if they actually float, right? Because if they don't float, that means there's no use going much further with this carburetor, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. The problem with this carburetor is it likes to flood, and I just want to see if these floats float, right? If they don't float, or if they float pretty far. If I got to put like a load, you know, like if they float when the bowl is overflowing, that would indicate a problem. So they seem to float okay. They don't seem to be binding or anything. So, you know, this kind of stuff always gets interesting. The carburetor seems to be fine other than flooding. So I think I'm gonna adjust the turn off on the fuel valve. Well, actually, let's take a quick look at the fuel valve, and then we'll go forward. So here's the way it works, right? Those things float and they push up on this and they turn off the gas. Now, one of the reasons why I didn't mess with this carburetor is because I was concerned that this pin that goes through here was stuck. So let's get it out of there. I already sprayed it a couple of times with the PP blaster in hopes of it making things work better. Oh good, it's moving. Yeah, that worked actually pretty good. If you kind of look on the end of it there, I tried to grab it with some vice grips and it chewed it up a little bit. It was really in there pretty tight. Now, you really don't want to lose any of this stuff, so do be careful. Hang on to it with your good hand. So here's the float valve, and I want to show it to you. Maybe if I trick it to focus. Right, it doesn't look to have any ridges or anything. I wiped it off, so it really looks pretty clean. And inside the carburetor, it looks clean there too. I am just gonna give it a quick wipe out with a Q-tip, and hopefully it behaves. Right, I don't feel any material on here when you run your fingernail. This is actually made from some decent material. It's not made with the pot metal that the Chinese stuff is made with. So I'm going to check the float valve to make sure it's sealing. Right when the carburetor is right side up, you can blow through it, and when you turn it upside down, you cannot blow through it. So I'm going to smash this on there, and we're going to give it another try. Let's put some gas into it, see what it does. Right, I went with the clear fuel line, so you should see it filling up, and you should see it stop. And unfortunately, I'm not sure how far you could see, but it's going down. And if you guys could see the carburetor, you could also see it's dripping out. Right, I think you could see that the fuel line hasn't quite. Wait a second, fuel line's about to get, there it goes. Right, it's just crossing where you guys could see it. So anyway, let's give it a start. Battery pack on. I don't know if you guys can see the neutral. The neutral light is fired up. And Now, I raced it up a little bit deliberately for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm running 40 to 1 into it. And when you get this much smoke, I'm pretty sure the oil injector's working. So that's one big plus. The second thing is I wanted to see if the torque converter was working, and it appeared to be. Now, where are we with this thing? I would call this a very dangerous all-terrain vehicle. And the reason is not that you could put your fingers or elbow or something into that spinning clutch. I would call it dangerous because at this point it could get crazy expensive and there's not a lot you could do about it. I do not have a carburetor on this thing, and it doesn't appear to want to take the closest clone that I could find. And a little bit of sniffing around. I'm just not finding what I need. Perhaps if I, measure the input on that guy, I can find a snowmobile carburetor that'll go on there that the ball isn't too big on. I don't know. How much is the carburetor going to cost? At this point, I did invest in the carburetor at $60, and I invested in a belt, so there's another 30 or so. I have about $100, and I'm calling this a $250 machine, so I'm up to $350. How far out on the limb do we want to go with this thing before we say uncle? My second problem with this thing, and I'm not beyond pulling the engine off and putting that 200cc Predator, or the biggest engine that I can find with a torque converter, to go under the hood, right? I'm not beyond trying to figure all that out. But the high and low on the transmission doesn't work. The photo reverse appear to, but the high and low does not. That's kind of why I bought the belt. I want to jack it up, put the belt on there, even if I'm kind of running it off a gas bottle. I want to get it to the point where I can rev this thing up and see that the four-wheel drive works, see that some of this other stuff works, right? I already looked over the boots. The boots are cracked. So that's not a good thing. I'm looking at this guy, and I really hate to say it, but I'm looking at a money pit. Financially, this is a dangerous machine. It's just looking like the money valves could open up and this thing could swallow an entire wallet. And when I give up on it and trade it and so forth, or whatever becomes of it, the next person could open up their wallet and it could siphon that out too. So I'm going to put this thing on hold. I just don't want to watch a crazy amount of money disappear. I am a tad disappointed in the machine, not in the deal. I keep talking about being after a blaster, and I was kind of hoping that this would satisfy my 2-cycle itch. It doesn't appear to be. I guess what I could do with that machine, I could almost write 0 next to it, then next to this guy, the little bit of money I had to put into it, carburetor, battery, I don't know, air cleaner, $150, right? I then hit it with the other $750, call it $150 and $750. For $900, I did okay on this Moto 4, and we'll call the Exploder here just a freebie. And so, once again, I did fine on the deal, and I will continue to say thank you to Stanwood Studios, Stan, S-T-A-N, Wood Studios, and I think all in all the deal was great. I'm just a tad disappointed because I really wanted to ride this thing. I really wanted to get it out and romp it about. Hey, when not everyone's gonna work. And speaking of which,